Next is Phil Hoskins, Managing Director, Evolution Energy Minerals Limited. Phil commenced his career at a large international accounting firm and has since gained corporate experience with both Australian and international listed companies. He's a senior executive with 14 years of broad finance and commercial experience across resources, exploration, project development and production, as well as large-scale property developments requiring debt and equity financing. He was appointed as IMX's Managing Director in October 15 after being Chief Executive Officer since September 14, before which he spent almost 3 years as IMX's CFO. Please welcome Phil to the podium.
Thanks, Deborah. I think I need to update the bio there. It's getting a little bit old, but anyway, going back to IMX days. But before I start, well done to Paydirt and all the visiting delegations on a fantastic Africa Down Under. It's a conference that's gone on very well and great to see it so well attended. I'm here today to talk about our Chilalo Graphite project. It's a project going back to a company called IMX Resources in 2014, a project I've been developing over the last 8 years, and we're reaching a very exciting part of the journey right now. The project is development ready. We've got a DFS, mining licence, environmental approvals in place, and we're working towards FID at the moment. The original DFS was published in the first quarter of 2020. We're updating that over the coming months and expecting some excellent results to continue. One thing that really sets our graphite apart from all other graphite projects is the flake size. Other graphite in Tanzania is coarse flake, but we're one of the coarsest flake graphite projects in the world. And fundamentally, the 101 on graphite is the coarser the flake, the higher the price, subject to qualification into various applications. And so for us, that's going to be driving high prices and high margins. The economics on our previous DFS were excellent, a $323 million US NPV, 34% IRR. So excellent economics, but as I said, these are being updated in the coming months, and with what's happening in graphite pricing, we're expecting margins to be increased from that previous DFS. I've spent almost 250 days in China across 30 plus trips, because in graphite it is all about understanding the market and the different applications. And that's recently yielded our cornerstone binding offtake with the global leader for producing expandable graphite and graphite foil in YXGC. And there's also a desire to go downstream with that group, which I'll talk about. Over the last 6 months, we've also put a lot of time and effort into qualification and test work and suitability into the lithium-ion battery space, and really pleased to talk about the results there that really are world-leading. We are in Tanzania, and as you've heard from a number of the other presenters today, there is a requirement for framework agreements to establish that fiscal stability required for development. We've visited Tanzania many times this year, Zoom calls over the last few weeks, and just like Peak, we're expecting to sign our framework agreement in the very near future. We recently welcomed a strategic investor as our cornerstone, the Arch Sustainable Resources Fund, not only bringing funding and following their 25% shareholding through to FID, but also assisting us with ESG and also introducing other parties into the financing as well. So they've been a fantastic cornerstone to have. So not only do we have a great project underpinned by the coarse flake graphite, but we'll have many ways of value addition to add value going forward. Oh, it looks like we've got the wrong presentation here. All right, we'll stick with the yellow note. We recently conducted a capital raising and we've got cash of 17 million. Marvel's our major shareholder, and as you can see, the Arch Sustainable Resources Fund there at 25%. I'm not sure how we got that yellow note in there. Let's push past that. The board, it's really important in the graphite space to have people that understand the graphite market. It is unlike any other market. You can't bring someone in with base and precious metals background and expect them to commercialise a graphite project. So outside of my own 8 years with this project and that market focus, Trevor Benson, our chairman, spent 6 years as executive chairman of a Tanzanian graphite developer. And Michael Bourguignon and another guy on the executive team He's the only guy outside China that's actually built a graphite project. So he was the project manager responsible for the development of Syra's project in Mozambique, amongst 5 projects he's developed on the African continent over the last 12 years. And the management team there, my CFO, my company secretary, and my country manager have been with me for the 8 years of the project's development. All have a fantastic understanding of commercialising graphite projects. And Vicky Punchin was brought in by Michael, brought across from Syra Resources as our General Manager of Corporate Services based in Tanzania. She performed that role for Syra, managing everything non-technical in Mozambique for the last 5 years. So we've got a great team there, and also on the markets. You need to be well advised on where to sell your product to, the different end users, specifications, and Chris Whiteley in the Western markets and Eileen Howe in the Chinese markets assist us in that regard. So we've heard a lot about the demand for graphite, and I think it's impossible to ignore. I want to touch a little bit on the supply side, which I think is equally as compelling. What a lot of people don't know is, compared to all of the other battery metals, China has more of a stronghold or stranglehold on graphite than any of the others. So 70 to 80% of the raw material flake graphite supply comes out of China. 100% of the downstream processing, the spheronization and purification is done in China. And expandable and expanded graphite, which I'll talk about more, being the value-added activity for coarse flake graphite, 90% of that is done in China. So you ask yourself, why is graphite a strategic critical mineral for all of these countries? It's very clear. The desperation stakes are increasing. We're seeing funding packages and funds being put in place all around the world, with Western economies trying to diversify supply chains away from China. And a lot of the qualifications we've done with customers, whilst I have spent a lot of time in China, we have qualified extensively with customers in Europe and in the US as well. So what is that reliance on Chinese supply? I think it was said by John earlier that it is quite cyclical or seasonal supply. So in winter, which sort of runs from November to February in Heilongjiang, gets to minus 35 degrees up there, there's a shutdown in supply. And so you've seen over the last 9 or 10 months, there's been over 50% increase in that fine flake graphite price. Coarser flake, not quite as much, probably in the order of 20%. But we don't need higher prices to incentivise our mine into production. We're already looking to make market-leading margins. But it's worth pointing out that we're now at the peak season of mining in China. Whilst the price has flattened, it's not coming off. China can't keep up with the amount of demand that's coming from the lithium-ion battery market. And I expect the price to flatten and in the next winter to continue to increase. The deficit that's creeping in there, Benchmark Mineral Intelligence talking about a 650,000 tonne deficit by 2025. Now that's only 2.5 years away. That's 13 new mines the size of our mine that will need to be brought into production just to maintain equilibrium. So until that supply demand is fixed and numerous additional mines are brought into production, I'm expecting the price environment to remain very favourable for graphite. A bit more on the project. There we are in southeast Tanzania, 200 kilometres inland from the Mtwara port. I mentioned the project is development ready. We've got a definitive feasibility study. We're expecting to sign our framework agreement imminently and update that DFS in October, and then push into the financing process. High margins, as I mentioned, driven by coarse flake graphite. Fundamentally, the coarser the flake, the higher the price. And down the bottom there, you can see the various proportions of different flake sizes that we have. And to put it in perspective, on the right-hand side there, 36% of our product is fines. 83% of Syra Resources product in their last quarterly was fines. Now, this is the lower value. Whilst it's now going for $850 to $900 a tonne, it still is the lower value component of what we're looking to sell. At the coarser flake end there, the plus 32 mesh, if you can qualify that into high value graphite foil for electronic devices, you can sell that for north of $3,000 a tonne. So clearly that's the flake size advantage that we bring with our product. We've got a big sustainability focus. Everything's being done in accordance with IFC standards. We recently completed our relocation action plan and had that approved by the Chief Government Valuer. And we're also seeking to be a net zero carbon producer of concentrate as we move forward. We've already got an 18-year mine life, but I'll show you on this slide here that there's potential for a lot of upside. So the mining license that we have is the white outline in the middle. There's a white outline of our 18-year based on Ore Reserves deposit, but there's 33 kilometres of strike that is the same conductance or higher conductance than our existing deposit. And you might say, well, with an 18-year mine life, well, why are you going to drill some more? We want to be able to demonstrate to strategic financiers and to battery partners and these sorts of things that we can double and triple production to grow with this growing market, but also be around for many decades to come. And there's absolutely no reason we don't have enough graphite to support that. I'll talk a little bit about our off-taker here. This is the culmination of all the time I have spent in China. YXGC are the global leader for producing expandable graphite and graphite foil. So if you have coarse flake graphite, you will want to qualify it into these materials. Once you've done that, you will then want to be selling to a company like YXGC. They sell their graphite foil to Apple and Samsung, so their position in this market cannot be challenged. I've been meeting them since 2015, and as recently as last week, they're expanding their plant capacity in China. Some of these markets, including bipolar plates for hydrogen fuel cells, which is a new application for moulded graphite foil, is a huge market and one that the Chinese government are spending more to support than they are the lithium-ion battery industry. The offtake agreement itself, whilst it only covers 56% of our production or 30,000 tonnes per annum, it's more than 70% of our revenue, given it's those higher value coarse flake products. So it's a substantial cornerstone offtake agreement for us and really underpins the financing that we're looking to pursue in the near term. There's also a downstream collaboration. These guys are looking to go downstream with us in Europe to expand their business, take their technology overseas. That'll be a second stage for us, and in the near future you can look out for a binding term sheet for a downstream joint venture in that regard. Just a little bit on the value-added activities that firstly our graphite is suitable for, but also what people like YXGC look to do with our graphite. So you take the graphite concentrate, there's some price ranges there, washing in acid and reagents, turning it into expandable graphite that can be used for fire retardant applications, heating that up, turns into this soft, fluffy stuff called expanded graphite that's actually used as a conductivity enhancement on the cathode side of the battery. So that's in lead acid, lithium ion, alkaline batteries. Panasonic and these sorts of guys buy that for the cathode side of the battery, which is a bit unknown. And then putting that through a series of rollers turns it into the graphite foil, as I mentioned, used in electronic devices and also the hydrogen fuel cells. So big markets, big value add, and this is why they need premium quality coarse flake graphite like ours. I have spent a hell of a lot of time, because we do have such a coarse flake product, understanding those coarse flake markets, and it has been more over the last 6 months that we've spent a bit of time trying to test our material in the lithium-ion battery space, and the performance has been unbelievable. One thing that sets apart the process we're looking to do is, rather than using hydrofluoric acid, which is toxic to handle and to dispose of, we're seeking to use thermal purification. And this is with a group in the US that are an established manufacturer of advanced battery materials, and they already are selling to the likes of Tesla. So we know it's commercially proven technology. The results have been outstanding. The electrochemical performance is as good as it gets. The yields into finished product are more than 50% better than the standard Chinese flow sheet. And it's all being done in a very environmentally friendly supply chain. As I mentioned, our intention is to develop the Tanzanian project to be net zero carbon from the outset. If we can take that concentrate into a renewably powered and thermally purified downstream process to produce coated spherical graphite, then you've got an end-to-end supply chain that is the most sustainable on the planet going into anodes. That is the flow sheet. I won't get into too much detail there, but essentially what we've done is we've flipped around the milling and shaping and the purification. We purify first, we mill and shape second. We're getting 64% yields into coated spherical graphite, which vastly exceeds the 40% yields. But then that electrochemical performance, as I mentioned before, it's as good as it gets. It's perfect for the high power EVs and energy storage batteries that are going to be experiencing the growth in this space. And just to put this in perspective, and I know there's a lot of perspective being given about this revolution that we're undergoing at the moment, but recently Tesla said to Panasonic, we want you to build 2 terawatt hours of capacity, battery capacity for us. We're expecting that's going to be by 2035, but if to put that into perspective, so they need 2.4 million tonnes per annum of anodes. That's not graphite, that's that's anodes. At a 64% yield, if we put all of our fines into this process, would be 0.5% of that goal. So you'd need 200 companies doing what we're doing just to meet Tesla's demand. Forget Volkswagen and every other electric vehicle manufacturer. Forget the energy storage batteries, which are now starting to go vertical as well. So it's an amazing space to be in, and to have material that's suitable for these applications, the sky's the limit for this company. So just closing out and sort of what's next, I've spoken about both the mine in Tanzania and some diversified downstream strategies. On the mining side, I mentioned we are fully permitted. We've got the offtake in place. The framework agreement is imminent. The updated DFS will wrap some new numbers that will be slightly higher capital costs given the inflationary environment we've been in, but given that surge in graphite prices, more than 20% higher than our feasibility study only 2 years ago, we're expecting higher margins. And working through the project financing, and we're expecting that we'll have independent technical engineers looking at that post DFS. We've got a number of banks, both African development finance institutions and credit funds, looking to look at the project and push that towards FID, all with a supportive cornerstone investor following their money. The downstream will be the really interesting value add that we'll be working on over the coming 12 months. There'll be announced economics, site selection, and continued product qualifications, and hopefully some offtake partners with some names you'll recognise. So thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of ADU.